welcome. I'm just going to stand for 2 minutes and then I'm going to take a seat because I'm going to introduce you to some of the august thought leadership of the hospitality industry. And I think my introductions would not do enough justice to them, and hence I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. So where do we want to start with? Do we still say ladies first? No. Yeah, why not? Of course, we are hospitality. We don't forget our manners, right? Let's go ladies first, okay? So now we have a choice. The women can contest. Lean in women.
No. Oh, you want to start with the A first?
Okay, I'll go. Shailja Singh, represent the Oberoi group, based out of their corporate office in Delhi. Been with them actually through and through. Nearly 30 years with them now. And yes, a difficult representing HR today, and today's time went from CEOs to CXOs, and everybody's been only talking about talent. At least in every panel I've heard talent. It's going to be an interesting one. Though I must say, and I've been saying this to Anjali, that somehow the core, we're no more Indian hospitality companies, but we seem to be, Taj, Oberoi, and ITC seem to be here. We need a little bit more representation from the others, but anyway, we'll make use of it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Urvi Aradhya. I represent Raheja Corp, Shailja Hotels Limited. We are the partners with Marriott Hotels in India, lot many properties of Marriott. And it's a very interesting topic, actually, and I was talking to Lebana when we were just interacting, because I think whoever is there in this room, be it in HR or is in business, this is a hot topic. The talent is felt to be eluding, but at the same time, when we were discussing, as I said, I have a slightly different take on that. We will elaborate when we go along on the discussion. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Anjali. I take care of executive search for Hotelivate. Actually, I want to know the different viewpoints and opinion of the various brands over here. Of course, Urvi giving in the Marriott perspective, and rest of the ladies and gentlemen talking about the Indian hotel industry. So I really want to know what is brewing inside and what is the way forward for everyone. Has somebody actually eaten your talent or not? So I'm still kind of, I think it's still open for discussion.
So, Gaurav, Pokhariyal, representing Indian Hotel Company Limited, the youngest member on the panel, because I've just moved to human resources about a year back and still trying to find my feet. Very interesting times. Who ate our talent? I'm not really sure. I don't think anybody has that answer in this room. We can keep on speculating. But interesting times. I think these are times where we're going to learn together. We're going to understand what this industry means now post-pandemic. And it's anybody's game going forward. And I'm privileged to be part of this panel.
Hi everyone, I'm Sanjay Bose, representing ITC. Unlike Gaurav, spent my entire life in HR and in hotels. So yeah, hopefully this is a meaningful discussion. We are doing this after a long while. And talent has been discussed as long as I remember it, you know, whether it was a HICSA panel or a HOSI, otherwise. Hopefully we'll look for some interesting solutions from the audience this time, rather than us discussing and trying to suggest solutions. Look forward.
Hi, I'm Prahlad Puri, representing the Indian School of Hospitality. I think the first real spanner in the works I want to throw is, it's not about who ate our talent, but it's about why. And I think this discussion should facilitate some great insight into what we as an industry can do about that.
So absolutely, we will focus on the how and the why. Let's start with what's actually happening. Unprecedented times, unexpected, and as much as talent bled, crunched down to a loss of 47% in the first quarter of 2020. Okay, we are trying to get back to normalcy. The question is, what is normalcy? Okay, and I'm going to throw this question open. By the way, my name is Lebana Penkar, and I've been a hardcore hotelier for the past 16 years, and it's just about on the 4th that I decided to diversify into a design firm. So I work for an interior design company at present called Arrivae as the CHRO. But again, I would like to believe that I'm the most humane HR, okay, not bereft of my dilemmas and my angst and my pain, especially during the COVID time. I completely empathize with all of you here. The idea is not only to throw the questions and seek solutions from the august panelists, but it's open to all. Let's just have a heart-to-heart conversation, because I think there are no right and wrong solutions at present. So let's understand what's really happening. As we try to gain our feet back into the norms, the rituals, and the routine, where are we getting our talent from? What have we really done to attract our talent back? Because I believe most of the talent is seeking greener pastures, and the greener pastures are across industries. They don't want to work in hospitality any longer. So what's happening? Have you managed to get your talent back?
Okay, let me take this, because as we were discussing, I have a slightly different take. I wouldn't say that we have completely lost our talent or we are not getting our people back. And as Prahlad was saying, the key is in identifying that what we as an organization, as corporate, need to do to bring back the talent. So there's been a paradigm shift in the way people are thinking post-pandemic. Definitely, yes. They are very focused on what they want. They are very, very clear what actually matters to them. And most importantly, millennials, when we talk about, they are to some extent downsizing their career. So if you see Maslow's hierarchy of the need, actually the biggest is the basics, roti, kapda, and makan. And that's, in most cases, has been taken care by the parents since today's time. So what comes next? And that's fulfillment and happiness. And that's why I think as a corporate, we need to focus on the YOLO mindset, what always used to be there. I think, you only live once, and that's so high in today's time, post-COVID, because of the life uncertainty. People realize that if they want to live life, they want to have experiences. So while some may call it that it's a sense of entitlement, actually I believe at the core of that entire entitlement issue is not the entitlement, but it's a redefinition of the reframing the word success, what means to people and what it used to mean to people. So if we are able to create a very, very proper value proposition and articulate to candidates, and that's what we've been trying to do, believe me, we are able to attract talent, not with so much of pain. So that's what my take on this. Thank you.
So what's the value proposition that you're attracting your talent back with? Because you've already furloughed your employees. You've already forcefully attrited them. And the employees have seen how their companies have treated them during COVID. So what is your value proposition on the table at present to get them back?
I think I'd like to add on to, I'd like to answer the first question, just like to add on to what you said. Extremely pertinent at this point in time. So if you look at certain basic facts, percentage of attrition continues to be the same. In fact, it's improved. And that's logical because nobody wants to leave an organization, especially a well-entrenched ethical organization during the pandemic time. It's difficult to get jobs, etc., etc. So that's the reality. Organizations, keeping in mind business imperatives, have actually scaled down in terms of numbers. Whether they have furloughed people, whether people have left by themselves, no replacements taken. That's a point of debate and discussion. But people have continued staying in the organization. Rationalization in terms of number of people have taken place. What is hitting us today, the crunch, the so-called crunch, the so-called mass resignation time that's been floating around, is the fact that post recalibration, if you lose something, it's difficult to find that replacement in the market, right? Because everybody is actually taken in watching. The fourth phase is on the corner. The last 2 years, losses have to be made good. There's huge amount of interest that you are paying on the monies that you are acquiring, so on and so forth. Those are the key areas of concern as we look at business going forward. This is also a great opportunity for us to look at rationalizing our numbers, and at the same time, can we start paying people rightfully what is due? Is this the great opportunity that we can actually redesign before they resign the jobs? This is also a great opportunity for you to realize, and this is another word which is running around at the moment, is the boomerang effect. People left the organization, they left the sector, and they want to come back because there is something which we tend to undermine. A sense of nostalgia, familiarity, so on and so forth. How do we accommodate these kind of people? This is also a great opportunity for us to actually relook at what kind of talent we need. It is also a great opportunity, I think, for us to relook at the way we do business. Is this the right kind of business model? Do we need to go back and do business through our regular, traditional channels of business? Or do we need to relook at how work needs to be done? Do we still need to work in silos, in verticals? Or do we need to look at project-based, design-based approach towards our jobs and make jobs more exciting and enticing? I think the larger concern is not the pandemic. I think it's given people an opportunity to relook at what they are doing in life at a larger scale. The job just happens to be one. So I just wanted to add that as part of your first question.
So,
I'd love to add something to that. I think, fantastic points from Mr. Pokhariyal over there. I do believe that there are two ways to look at the talent pool out there today. One is those who've been furloughed out there, worked in the industry, had the experience, and perhaps the industry wants some of them back. Second part of the talent that's available or about to be available is new entrants into the industry. Those graduating from hospitality schools like ours, like the IHMs, like the other great schools that India has. Now, ma'am mentioned the millennial. The millennial is there, the millennial is in the workforce, and the millennial is in and out of different industries, yes. I think the bigger challenge we have today is really trying to understand and decode the mindset of the Gen Zer. Because the Gen Zer is not only the future employee to the industry and multiple industries around the place, more importantly, the future customer. And in being the future customer, how are we as an industry supposed to understand their likes, dislikes, passions, wants, aspirations, if we ourselves don't understand them from an employability perspective? That employability perspective, and recently at ISH, we conducted a survey. About 170 of our students went out for their internships to different hotel companies, both domestic brands and international brands. And a lot of good data came out of that. And some of the key highlights, just to point out, was the internship as per what they expected from the industry? Largely, yes. Because what they had heard about the industry, from rigorous working hours to poor pay to all of the things that we like to believe we are going to do something about, they see it very matter of fact on the face of things. And the sad truth to all of this is when those 170 kids came back, less than 30% of them want to join core hotels. And when we asked them, what would you like to do otherwise or other than that? Their answer is very simple. We have multiple opportunities. There are e-commerce ventures, there are new age hospitality ventures, there's banking, finance, retail, real estate. And that, to me, those are industries that, again, I'm not going to say are eating our talent, but are attracting our talent away in ways in which we can very easily put in men's. I mean, if you take the example of hospitality and hotel companies cutting down workforces by 30 to 50% across the board, now you've lowered your manpower. So obviously as rates go up, occupancies go up, that, a lot of the conversation yesterday has been about humans having short-term memory. Short-term memory doesn't only apply to, things that have happened in COVID. It also applies to service expectations. A lot of our expectations fell during the pandemic because we were getting to get away. And that was, a kind of a success in its own way. that short-term memory will lead into service experience and customer, kind of delivery as well. And the fact of the matter is that when we're paying room rates of 20,000 rupees a night, we will expect those services and those experiences to come back. How are we going to do that if we have diminished our manpower, perhaps not increased it, expect people to do more than one task or more than one job, but remunerate them no differently? That's food for thought. That's something that hopefully we can discuss as we go forward in this conversation.
So that's the third voice which talks about remuneration, okay, a consideration for the existing remuneration, right? Sanjay?
So let me try and build my case with some numbers, okay. 30,000 people, 32,000 students used to apply for hotel management colleges pre-pandemic, right? This year, no guesses, 11,000, right? Out of the 32,000 which applied, about 8,000 got through. There was 20% wastage of seats in IHMs across the country. What it means is, even if 30,000 people were applying, they're not making the cut of getting into the hotel management colleges. Now let's build on that, right? You have spent 3 years working, understanding your front office, your F&B, your production, housekeeping. When you pass out, the entire batch, take a guess at what's the percentage which gets into hotels or hospitality for that matter. 40%, and I'm talking pre-pandemic, right? So you start with 30,000 candidates who applied, you come down to 8,000 which are accepted. Out of that 8,000, you have about 40% which choose hospitality as an option. Out of that 40%, less than 50% stay in the industry 3 years down the line. Okay, so that's the size of the problem you're dealing with, and that's pre-pandemic. Okay, post-pandemic, you know how many people chose hotels as an option last year? No guesses, 6%. So when you talk about the talent pipeline, that's the size of the problem that you're dealing with. So for us as an industry, think about it, why would a person invest 3 years learning and building his front office and his F&B skills and his housekeeping skills and go and join an industry which is totally different, because that's not what he started out for. So I think a large portion of this problem lies within ourselves. No surprises. We've been talking about it for the last 10 years or not. Long hours, right? Gaurav's point, a REM which is below par with other industries. So what do we do as an industry about it? No, we are losing talent. So what's happening is, actually we are losing quality talent. The best minds which are passing out from hotel management institutes today don't choose to come to hotels. When I say that 40%, if you look at the best minds, it's probably about 5%. So there are many factors. Some of them are internal to us, like I said, long working hours, very, and forgive this word, autocratic way of working in our industry, and lack of flexibility. So on an average, and I may be wrong, but every person in our industry works a minimum of 12 hours, right? Add to that the mix that we have to work holidays, festivals, etc., no family life. So what do we do? The standard answer of the industry is, if I reduce the working hours, that means I need more people. If I need more people, the cost goes up. So what happens to my flow through? In the early 90s, mid-90s, when I was working with a expat general manager, who had first come to India, he told me that we are robbing people. Why? Because my payroll cost was 12% of revenue, right? He had come from a framework where 55 to 60% is a norm. So why is it that today in our mindset, when the payroll cost goes to 24%, we think that we are over-leveraged? So somewhere I think one of the answers is we need to figure out the market that we're competing in. It's not ITC versus Taj and Oberoi, right? It's the entire hospitality versus e-com, it's versus retail, it's versus financial services. Look at the proposition which they are offering. And I think we need to recalibrate that to what we offer as an industry. Most of them are not something which is, big rocket science. It's very, very elementary stuff. Treat people right, ensure that they're good working hours, compensate them. You have to up your compensation. You have to be competitive, right? You can't look at the hotel market and say this is what the hotel salaries are, because you're not competing with hotel salaries. You're competing with e-com, you're competing with retail, you're competing with these kind of industries. I think fundamentally we need to relook at these two things. Working hours, that means more people in the system. And second is put your reward systems around what is happening against the people that you're competing with.
Actually, Sanjay, you made a very valid point, because this time I requested the HR managers to actually go back to the IHMs and find out what are the starting salaries that the students are getting when they go to retail or other brands. Because today we can't say that, what does Marriott pay or Hyatt pay or Taj pay, Oberoi pay or ITC pays, because at the end of the day, the talent pool is going somewhere else, and what are the starting salaries there? What are the perks and benefits there? So that kind of answers one aspect. Second aspect is that we have to remember for the next 2-3 years, we'll face another issue, and that is that for 2 years, students have physically not attended classes. So while they've theoretically studied, okay, practically they're not really skilled in that direction. So skilling, I think our training departments have to become an extension of the institutes. When those students come in, we cannot take it for granted that skilling is going to be there. So skilling is the second most important aspect. And I think somewhere the flexibility, and they are small things, but they go a long way. I mean, I still remember many years back, one of the managers that I worked with in a hotel said that, if I try and do this, that if tomorrow an associate is off, I try and give him a morning shift today. So he feels that he's got a 1.5 day instead of, just going home at 1 o'clock at night, sleeping the next day. These are small things. I'm talking very basic, but I think it's the basics that need to be corrected, as Sanjay said, recalibrated, and we really need to understand that today's youth is not going to do it. We used to take pride, I worked for 18 hours a day without a break. I'm sorry if nobody's wanting to get that badge of honor. So I think those were my points.
To add to that, we have another challenge. There is a paradigm shift in the upskilling and the training part. I was with the NMIMS board, and I was trying to relook at their entire training or the syllabus which had to be revamped. And surprisingly, we found that anything that is pertinent to the current scenario, okay, especially post-pandemic, was not covered. So for example, we are still looking at training our kids, okay, and I'm calling them kids because they are, below 18. We are still talking about housekeeping, and we are still talking about, the 5 mother sauces, and we are talking about, we are not talking about cybersecurity, which has become so important today. And we are not talking about cultural sensitization, which is so important today, because a lady is going to say, stay away from me. Do I take it as a personal offense? No, it's her sense of social distancing and social security. So are we really training our people? So I'm sure the big giants do take care of this. So we have the Taj, we have the Oberois. What are the different training initiatives that you have launched? And I'm saying the new training initiatives to actually be relevant to the current situation post-COVID.
I think, first of all, in the softer skills part, you have to have a multi-skilled workforce. Because at the end of the day, this is a conundrum, and my colleague from finance is sitting opposite me. And, the 24% and the 20% versus the realities, it's always going to be there, because the bottom line, the top line, is important, otherwise we cease to exist. So, I mean, shying away from that reality is not going to be good, but yes, what was those percentages which give you a healthy remuneration? Now, apart from that, I think you need a multi-skilled workforce, because as you very rightly said, and at least as my chairman likes to say, we're not NASA scientists, we're not in the business of creating rocket scientists. We are in a business of service, and there is no way that a housekeeping person can't do front office and a front office person can't do food and beverage. Absolutely, I mean, chefs, yes, if somebody's really good at it, you'll have to skill and reskill. So that's one, but you're very right, health, hygiene, safety, aspects of IT, as technology becomes a part of our life, cyber security, we sit with guest data. I was just listening earlier that we were talking about GDPR, but GDPR has only answered some aspects of it. How do we kind of make that data secure? Those are modules that are being taken. Second thing is we have to move away from absolutely traditional classroom sessions. They are passé. When do you do that training? Between a lunch and a dinner or a tea, I mean, that's when people want to go take a break, want to take rest, want to read up. They can't, because we are forcefully making them sit in a classroom and making them do those sessions. So at the end of the day, they're half asleep, they're not really paying attention. You have to get more online. You have to look at, the paradigm needs to shift, and training cannot be just a classroom training. So skilling, multi-skilling, the new age technology, the challenges that come with it, are some of the things that we really need to, and a lot of use of technology actually, online, modules to be ready, people can learn at their own time. And today, you have that ability and flexibility to support the operations for that.
Yes, Gaurav.
So, your first question was a very loaded question. There were certain aspects that Sanjay brought forth. So, I just wanted to add on to that, and then maybe I'll come to your second question. The problem is not in numbers. The problem is that no longer is our industry considered to be attractive. I remember in 1992 when I joined this industry, I had no idea what this industry was all about. I used to really look up to the general manager. They were so inspirational. I mean, they were flamboyant, they were great-looking guys. And I'm not trying to trivialize the conversation here, but I mean, the aspiration to become like them, all right, was so tremendous. It was almost like a guiding force at that point in time, all right. I have some of my colleagues here. Sanjay is here. I mean, I took over many years back a hotel from him. Wanted to emulate him. Dilip, I took over again, Rambagh Palace in Jaipur. Prabhat Verma, my colleague from IHCL, we've been, I think, colleague now for more than 30 years. Used to really look up to him because he was the kind of personality who moved into a city and the whole city would know him, and Prabhat Bhai. So, you always wanted to emulate these people. There was something which was really attractive. The long hours didn't matter, all right? Today I understand it's different, all right? You referred to our basic needs. The new generation basic needs are met today. They don't have to, get into a job and open their first LIC account. They don't have to start thinking about a house or EMIs and so on and so forth. These people have that courtesy us. So what they are looking at is an affiliation. When they look at organization, they tend to look at affiliation. Pandemic provided that opportunity to organizations to demonstrate that. Some failed, some did a great job of it. Okay. The new age potential hires in companies look at a sense of purpose. They want to align themselves to a larger purpose than just the job. And in which way do you articulate that as an organization has a tremendous effect on people who join you. So these are aspects which are very difficult to actually dwell into because they are outside our comfort zone, all right? But these are issues that at some point in time we need to introspect and we need to find answers for these. As far as numbers and business is concerned, This is like any other business. There are certain imperatives. Payroll cost as an input in terms of cost will always be there. We can keep on debating that, getting into discussions. We do that anyway at the time of budgeting, all right? And HR always puts certain figures. Those figures are slashed now. Now I'm on the other side of the fence, so I understand their pain. But we need to understand that it's been long due where adoption of technology hasn't taken place. The other thing on the softer side that we need to recalibrate the expectations. I've been part of hardcore operations. You know, it's almost like being in the army in the trenches with your sleeves folded. And look at the kind of conversations that take place. They are good for that moment, but they are highly irresponsible. You are considered to be committed if you put in more than 12 hours. This is a very vague definition. All right? I've been part of that. You are committed if you hang around after your working hours are over. You are committed. How does that create space for women in the organization who have more responsibility than men? So these are certain difficult questions which need to be answered going forward. The business realities, the business models will always be there. You'll have to keep that at the back of your mind. How do we quickly actually go about adopting technology so that we can reduce number of people? How do we ensure that we educate people about work-life balance and how it matters to overall well-being? All right? Do we need to take pride when somebody leaves late, or do we need to really point it out? I'm not asking you to shame them. All right? This industry will come to a standstill. But at least point it out and let the conversations be built around that. So the way we communicate, the kind of behavior that we exhibit, all tends to create a work environment. Coming to your second question, I think again, pandemic gave us a great opportunity in terms of looking at alternate sources of revenue, thinking out of the box, double hatting, triple hatting, taking on additional responsibilities, suddenly finding your passion somewhere else. I really don't envy a lot of my colleagues. Prabhat's taken on multiple, I think at this moment in time, he's wearing multiple hats. He looks after our other alternate sources of revenue in terms of Cumin as well as Ama homestays. I don't think he signed up for that, but I don't think he had a choice in the matter. But it also tends to enhance your skills. It also pushes you to understand what genuinely makes you happy, all right? And this is, like I said earlier, I think this is a great opportunity for us to allow people to experiment, redesign our jobs, look at non-traditional sources of revenue, and make this industry slightly more exciting than what it used to be.
So, to answer your specific question on what kind of training which people are thinking, organizations are thinking, so while it's a hygiene that you would be giving them training on the functional part of it, but last 2 years had taken a biggest hit on the mental well-being of people, and that's what we realized that was a key point and key thing for us, and we actually focused on that. So every weekend on a Friday evening kind of a thing, we have sessions going on, and it can be taken even remotely, even later on, which is recorded sessions with the psychologist, and people can actually give out their concerns. And I was surprised initially when we started. I'll be very frank, I wasn't very sure whether people will be open enough to share their concerns, but we had amazing number of participants in this training, and it's still going on, and week after week the numbers are not coming down. So that actually made us realize that how important this aspect is,
Thank you. So I think I was just listening to both of them, and Gaurav so aptly said, it's the people who are willing to take on additional responsibilities are going to be the winners, because we've seen again a change in dynamics. So for example, even in hotels, we are looking at incremental revenue, and incremental revenue is all about outsourcing your kitchens, to making them cloud kitchens. I think we've done it all, because frozen food, packed food has become the norm during the pandemic. And I think anybody who is willing to explore that way is going to be the winner. The question is, are we going beyond the regular trainings to train especially our mid-management and our senior management to create that mindset? So for example, how many of us are really encouraging our mid-management on design thinking? Because that's going to be the new age winner. Just curious.
I don't think we have an option anymore. Like I've said, it's like, tasting the forbidden food. I think we've already done that in the last 2 years. We've suddenly discovered that this job is far more exciting than it used to be. Okay, the traditional ways of working, old designs don't work anymore. They are not going to work anymore. So you'll have to be very, very careful because you'll not attract talent otherwise. Absolutely not. All right. The other ability which we need to actually relook at and introspect, how do we scale up? I'm not necessarily talking about only businesses, but scale up in terms of your attrition levels, irrespective of how you deal with people, are still going to be an all-time high for the next 2 years. Businesses are opening up. If certain assessments that are being made out in certain subscriptions are to be believed, this is going to be first summer, which is going to be the best summer ever for for hotels to a large extent, even better than pre-pandemic levels. Because this whole divide between winter and summer business is going to get dissolved this year. People are willing to step out. People are willing to meet each other. MICE movement is going to be at its peak in summers for the first time. They're not going to wait for winters to come back. So I think design thinking is here to stay. Organizations that are going to continuously experiment with how they look at their jobs will always be favored more. And I don't think we have an option left. I don't think it's, should we think about it? I don't think we are at that stage anymore. I think we are way past that. And in fact, I was speaking to Prahlad before we actually came in here. I mean, it's almost scary as to how misaligned are we in terms of what we expect and what the new generation's expecting coming out of catering colleges.
Yeah. Just to kind of add to Mr. Pokhariyal as well as,
Thanks, yes.
Shailja, you said something very interesting, and your question about managers and supervisors and their responsibility in the training metrics. Where does their responsibility lie? Because when young talent comes into an organization, and any organization, hospitality being one sector, who are they looking to and who are they learning from? It's direct reporting, first and foremost. There is, of course, the aspiration of looking at GMs and senior leaders saying one day. But your immediate ability to learn, garner skills, refine those skills comes from the people you're directly interacting with. The sad truth, just culturally, about India in many ways is insecurity. Insecurity leads to mistreatment of new entrants into the workforce. Because a lot of people look at somebody coming in and saying, hey, you know what? He or her is going to take my job someday. They don't look at it from the perspective of, if I provide the right learnings to this individual, I can go on and do other things, bigger things, and they also in turn get the opportunity to rise up and do more. I think the second part of it, and Mr. Pokhariyal hit upon it earlier, is how do we make the industry sexy to work for again? And it's as simple as the term sexy to work for again. The startup economy out there, and a lot of it is being started up by millennials and the Gen Zers. Yes, there are formidable startups coming up from veterans from different industries. But the unique offering that these new age businesses have is their innate ability to understand that mindset of that Gen Zer. And not just understand it because, hey, this is what we have been told Gen Z wants to do, and this is what we have been told the millennials want to do, and this is how they work. The truth of the matter is that they're in those trenches as well, so they understand the mindset by living it. A lot of us try and look at new entrants in our own mold. We did it this way, so it should be this way. There was a point brought up earlier about, and I understood what Mr. Pokhariyal said earlier a little differently about we have to work 12 hours to prove that. I think he meant it rhetorically, saying those times have changed.
Yes.
Where today, and we do this very often at ISH, and students of ours have done this to a large extent to outsiders coming in. If you ask a student today who's 18, 19, 20, about to enter the workforce, that I work 16 hours a day, the first response would be, what do you do in those 16 hours? what are you doing and how can we help you work smarter instead of harder? And you know, the hospitality industry, kudos to it. I grew up in this industry. I have tremendous respect for it. Our own dream and vision is to have an industry that students want to come and work for, and we want to be a part of that revolution. But I think the fundamental thing beyond just remuneration and working hours is the attractiveness. The attractiveness in multiple fold. So one example is responsibility. Allowing for creativity. Ms. Pokhariyal was speaking earlier. What happens to the creative aspect of an individual when they are brought into an organization, right? New age companies trying to think a little differently off the board typically are saying, hey, you're looking at things differently, you're coming with a non-jaded perspective, tell us what you think. And I hate to be the one saying this here, but the hotel industry is responsible. We do it this way, so this is how we're going to do it. That is changing. But that pace of change, we need to really, really speed up on. And those are a few things that will be a good start point for us to find the right balance between who we are, what we do, and who the new generation of workforce is and what they will be able to do. So yeah.
Thank you.
Let me try
So you
and
had something.
add to that, if you don't mind, sir. You know, if you look at training, what you're saying is basically the skills which are required to do the job, right? Now, COVID notwithstanding, you look at how the industry, the hotels themselves, the business has changed shape, right? We started 90s, hotels were all about inspirational leaders, page 3 figures, right? And it was about operations, right? So the best hotel management schools in the country, PUSA, whatever, they used to concentrate on teaching front office, F&B, food production to the best that they could. And the students which came out, they were obviously equipped with this knowledge about hotel operations, which was good. If you look at our business today, about 40% of the weightage, I would say, is on operations, right? And 60% has moved elsewhere. Academics has not changed. How many of our institutes today put a focus on revenue management? I'm not talking about exceptions. So how many is the question. So how many of them put, a lot of your business is coming through digital channels, right? How many of our hotel management schools teach even the basics about CRM and loyalty, what it means, right? So when students, when they pass out, they're not industry ready. You have to invest a lot of time in teaching stuff which matters more than what they have studied. So that's the first conundrum that the industry is facing. You're not getting industry-ready students. If I have to compare with finance, the people who do their chartered accountants and the cost accountancy courses, they come out 80% ready. In this case, you have students which are 30% ready. So that's the first problem. Okay. The industry is changing, and it's changing shape at a fast pace. Our academic curriculums are not keeping up pace. So the organizations, hotel companies like us, we have to invest more after taking ready students, making them further ready before they're deployed. So that's the first challenge that you're facing. The second is, like you said, one is hard skills for doing the job, and the second is the behavioral part. The world's changing. You could have your uncle-like chef who could come and hold your shoulder and say, good job, beta. If you try and do that today, you're doomed, right? So the perception of what's right and what's not right is changing, and that's something which is coming up from your childhood as you grow up. So obviously your policies, your processes, your awareness that you create in your workforce, that needs to change with time. So that's certainly a given. Come to the third piece, which was about management and leadership techniques. Okay, there are aspects which are relevant to you as a business. So there was a time when Kaizen, Lean, Six Sigma was something which was brought in because it was the way of doing business, and they lost Lean, it was replaced by something else. Design thinking, yes, it's relevant in certain pieces, but then there are other practices, leadership practices which are relevant. So organizations have to pick and choose and see what they do and what's relevant to them. What is most important is today, the generation is not looking at role models, right? We used to work because I had a GM who was inspirational, and we would like to do something which he would find noteworthy, praiseworthy. Today's generation doesn't put you on a on a pedestal. They're not looking at role models. They're not in awe of someone who's a page 3 figure. They're not looking at that. It doesn't matter to them, right? So therefore, the hook that you have to build into that talent is totally different from those role models that are larger than life. The hook that you have to build now is what matters to them, which is more about independence, which is more about flexibility, which is more, like Gaurav said, about having a purpose which is more than just work, right? We did a survey of some Indian management schools, not hospitality, and some Ivy League colleges. 75% of the students said that they'll take up to 50% cut in the offer if the company is known to be one with a larger purpose, which is giving back to the society or to the planet or whatever. So from our side, I think this proposition needs to change from the industry. Right now, the general perception is hotels is all about dust and dirt, right? And not so many larger things. So if we are able to work together and make that kind of a shift, that is the first thing which I think which is going to matter. The second is this whole business about short-term versus long-term, right? The pandemic hits, 9/11 happens. The first thing that you do is about truncating your workforce. Now, there are times when there are no options, when you have to do that, and that's a hard call. But how soon you try and do that is something which matters, and that's going to build onto the attractiveness of the industry. That's the second point. The third point is about our laws, right? If you have operated in Western countries, you know that you can engage part-time work. People are very happy to come and do part-time work with you, and the law provides, options to do that. In fact, in our hotels, in my earlier company's hotels in the US, there was a big chunk which was about part-time. You do 3 hours in our hotel, walk across the street, do another 3 hours in another hotel, depending on requirement, which the Indian law doesn't allow today, right? So I think besides the industry, we also need to have some kind of and representation to government to allow this kind of flexibility in our manning. Today, most organizations don't hire manpower because they have to pay it for the full month. Employment is permanent, right? So some of these thoughts.
Right. Yes, sir, please.
Your panelists need to get more time. I think,
Yes.
Shailja, I can come in if there is a minute or two.
Okay.
Okay, no. I don't think you've got enough time.
No, it's absolutely fine. We are open to, everybody viewing, because the idea is to have maximum opinions, right? Please.
I don't say this facetiously, but there's so much of wisdom that one has acquired in the last 15 minutes, and I say this sincerely. The combine of this young gentleman, Prahlad, and several colleagues in the industry, so the combine of the youth and the not so young in age, but wisdom has come through. I just want to, as a student of life, I just want to make 3 or 4 quick points. Some may appear sort of cliched, but those are my mantras as a student of life and been in this space for quite some time. First is the issue of culture. All of you have touched on certain aspects. Somebody mentioned perception of, and you seemingly concentrated on the problem, which is youngsters need to come in to the hospitality space. Okay, for a moment, I'm suggesting a paradigm shift. Both have an opportunity from a risk mitigation standpoint. I'm talking of human software. Okay, if you embrace that hypothesis for a moment, then I just want to sort of take this a bit forward. If there were organizations, and some of you represented here, and by the way, it's not about ITC, Oberoi, and which is the third one mentioned? Taj. Yeah, there are other, today the whole marketplace is, there's Tree of Life, there are so many others who are harnessing human software, which is the ecosystem of the hospitality space has enlarged. and Leela is very much there also in the space. So first and foremost, what are we in the space of? Endearing and enduring brands are those that build lifetime engagement with their customers, right? So, and that emanates from embracing the idea of lifetime value of a customer. I don't believe we in our space bring this thought and internalize it for those who serve our patrons. So look at the lifetime value of our colleagues. Second point, drawing inspiration from what Prahlad said, for the younger generation, leadership is not the exclusive hierarchy or is not the exclusive purview of hierarchy, right? Every individual is blessed with a leadership opportunity. Customers don't see you as departments. They see you as delivery agents working in a seamless manner, delivering brand promise. Leading from lifetime engagement is this thought process of creating a sense of belonging. Now we use these expressions for time immemorial. But I detest this word, and pardon me for sounding harsh, because you're talking about another human being, outsourced. The biggest irony is that individual or those sets of individuals who are part of this outsourced, unique pipeline are key elements to delivering brand promise, right? So it's important to embrace that thought process also. Secondly, those in the middle, for the lack of a better word, middle age, there are people seeking opportunities elsewhere in our space. Those who have service attitude, the willingness to serve, we need to keep revisiting this thing about needing a job and wanting to serve. So if established organizations and all you leaders around here would also look at reviving in a concentrated manner another pipeline of getting individuals. I recall ITC many years ago reached out to the Army Wives Association to get people. Our jobs are also transferable, so maybe that's a thought that you can bear. I've taken up a lot of your time, but I
Not
just
at
don't.
all. Thank you. Thank you for the insights. So that brings me to a very important question, because we realize women have really taken a big hit during the pandemic. And just a little curious, have you been able to maintain your diversity ratios in your organization?
Yes.
Have you welcomed the women back in your fold?
Actually, we never.
And how?
But we never let
And
them go.
growing.
They
Wonderful.
didn't go away.
They didn't go.
Lovely. So tell us about
I
a
have
few.
my colleagues, few of the women colleagues already sitting here, and some of them came back from the maternity as well. So
Lovely. So tell us about the best practices that you implemented to ensure that you hold your women talent together.
So this is a very close, this is a subject very close to my heart also, because I think a lot has been said in current times that, we need to have right number of diversity, right number of women and into the organization. And I think all of us have been doing that. It's kind of become a hygiene today. The key problem which comes up is typically at mid-management level, women when they are in 30s, that's when they are actually losing out and they are just going away from the organized work sector. Mainly because of, raising baby, and that's where I think we as an organization or as an industry need to be very supportive. And it requires a lot of culture change. It requires a lot of people enabling policies, because otherwise it's not going to happen. All said and done, the responsibility, primary responsibility, and it's not only restricted to India, let me be very honest, and we were discussing ahead, across the globe, primary responsibility still remains with women, and let's face it, it's the truth. And that's where if organizations are supportive, at least for a year when they are going through this major transition in their personal life, I think it's very, very easy to retain people, and then they are going to evaluate, they are going to move to the management positions. So just to share an example, today at Shailja Hotel in corporate office, we have 36% of women in the management. Okay, so that's something which we have achieved because we were very, very focused, not only getting women on the workforce, but actually seeing that whether they are able to progress in career or not. And we identified the problem and we worked around our policies around that. That's the answer. Easy thing to do, believe me, not very difficult. We just need to focus on the problems and just find a solution. That's it.
I'd love to add to that, just coming in from a newer generation. At ISH, we are so proud. We are one of the very few institutions in the country that are 50-50%. We have 50% female students, 50% male students. That same philosophy transfers into our operations and academic teams. We're 50-50 in ratio. Dilip, my father, our CEO, a lot of you know him here, a big part of his founding vision was that we have to create a platform to allow the world to see that the future is female. Every student that comes into ISH who's female is automatically offered a scholarship. We partnered with Wiki, we do reports with them. We're trying to do as much as we can to create more opportunities for our female students. And in the short time that we've been open, 5 years, the one thing we found is that our female students strive for more, are more passionate, and put out more output than our male students. I'm not taking anything away from the male students. But that just brings me to understand, having been much closer to our students' generation, to a lot of the generation that are running big companies today, the best thing that we see is they're not doing it in isolation. There is a full support of a generation, male or female, doesn't matter, who believe that equality is coming, who believe it's on the horizon. These are fundamental skills that need to be taught from school level onwards. Because this is not something that should be a conversation topic, it should be a given. And I believe that if we all put our heads together, we drill it down from a training perspective, from an education perspective, we'll see a world in which everybody and anybody will be all included, all inclusive, and that'll just lead to a stronger industry overall. We had a big challenge in the start. We said we don't have female board members. Today, half our board is female. So these are the things that we've put into practice to ensure that our young students, our female students, get inspired. We constantly call in women leaders to speak to our students. Katrina is around at HICSA. When she came in, we could see a transformation in the way in which our female students saw their own, kind of aspirations come to life. Chefs like Chef Ritu Dalmia, when she came into ISS to give us a class to our students, our female students, very confidently says, I can do that too, and I will do that. And to us, that's a matter of pride. And if it can start young, nothing can stop us going forward.
So we just have very little time to wrap up, but I have one vital question, okay? A thought that is triggered. While we say that women inclusion is a given, there needs to be a conversation about the inclusion of the rainbow people.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay,
100%.
so how open are we to that? Do we believe that the Shikhandis are going to help us win the war of talent?
Why?
Why not?
I think that's the way forward.
So, yeah, why not?
Efforts made? Anybody wants to share any of the efforts made? Please, sir.
I just want to say that you're ending this, and the topic, as I understood, was who ate my talent. This is all good stuff, but I just want to ask, because I see all the industry leaders here. So you all made some fantastic points. Gaurav, just hear that you understand the reality of what's happening with this talent, and Sanjay put out some amazing stats. Isn't this the time to do it? I think the time for conversations is over. The rhetoric has to now end. When you talk about the basic thing that we should pay more and make them work less, it's as simple as that when you put it at the back of the envelope. isn't this the time for the big corporations whom you represent to now say, good conversations, good debates, but we can't be having more conversations. It should be demonstrated and seen now. And I'll tell you the simple reason is, from existing professionals, I don't know, but this young talent issue, which you're all bringing about, it is a time bomb ticking for the industry. You will keep building newer hotels, you will keep expanding, growing newer avenues of business, and the quality of the talent you'll have available to you is going to keep dropping. So if some serious action doesn't happen, and no better time of inflection than a post-COVID time, right? It is a watershed moment where we're coming out of this and expect that this will be the, whatever, version 3.0 of everything. And I would urge, you guys, because you represent the biggest companies, and when the change happens there, whether it's on salary scales, whether it's on, redefining what working hours means, how you multi-skill, multitask, everybody will follow. So I want to put that onus of responsibility actually on all of you, that if next year there's a similar session, then we would be able to reflect on some great stats which have come out from that, saying, we're now on par paying as much as an e-commerce company would pay. And when you ask the question, Shailja, we have to find out, I'll tell you, an OCLD student gets 3.5 lakhs when he starts, or 30,000 bucks, whatever it is. A similar student getting into a Make My Trip will earn 8 to 9 lakhs a year. So that's 3 times. So that is where the real challenge for you guys is, to understand that those guys have eaten your talent and they're not giving it back. More and more is going to go away. This great migration to become a reverse migration and bring them back, actions have to be taken, conversations have to get over and done with. My point, sorry about that.
Said for the amount, and when I did this survey with the placement coordinators, the number of those who were rejected, just food for thought. Now these are right attitude. This is also the quality. They've also been bred, they've been trained for the last 3 years. The only drawback, they don't have English speaking skills, and that's the reason why the big brands actually rejected them. What if they were to be still, those with the right attitude were still to be picked up, and you would have on the label saying Hindi language expert? How does it matter any longer? So that's what you need to do. That's how you need to change. That's what I do for my business. We have 500 people, 80% are IHM students. And the reason why they are drawn is the intelligence, the work-life balance, and the constant reiteration that you will get trained better and you'll be a greater personality when you walk out of praxis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi. Just one comment, generally for the panel and for rest of you in the room. We are talking about generation not being able to work in the organization or in the hospitality industry, and we are unable to retain them. And imagine who's discussing. If you see, average age of this room is nearly 40 or maybe nearly 50 years old. The problem is that we have so much of love for chair that we don't want to leave that. You see what I'm saying? And unless we have the HODs in 20s, the general manager in 30s, and the executive committee members or in the corporate in 40s, then people or of their age are going to realize it may happen in a few years. But if you ask me, I'm going to retire in 2-3 years, but I feel I'm indispensable. I should work forever. I'm saying. So how you are going to have this young generation, excited about the industry when they know there's hardly any future, and when they see Prahlad, my friend, is laughing because you see, I'm saying on a serious note, I'm talking about this. You ask everybody's age and it will be close to 50. You see, I'm talking about this, So what we are talking is just, I don't know what. Anyway, so
Actually,
I kind of want to add something to that. All of us, we have mentors, we look up to senior leaders, people in those positions. Have we ever considered hiring or promoting a young entrant, young mid-20s, early 20s, late 20s, to be our mentors? Leaders in the hotel and hospitality industry, to have a 25-year-old or a 23-year-old to ensure that they have a beat and a pulse on what that generation wants. You know, we keep throwing this term around, experiential economy. The most amount of time any individual spends is in their work, in their job. If your job and your work is not an experience, what's the point of it all?
We have.
But actually, that's, I think all of us in the room, we've had, and to answer your question, Danish, we've had GMs in their 30s, we've had department heads in their 20s, and we've had them for the last 30 years. So it's not that growth can't come, and you just need to have it. And yes, mentors, buddies, who are young people. We don't give anybody who's beyond a certain age as a buddy or a mentor because they've actually reached a level of cynicism. So we really don't want that being passed down. So the buddies and mentors are all the young stalwarts. We have that. And I think what Sanjay mentioned, Gaurav mentioned, all of us have been talking about it. It's actually the larger purpose. Remuneration, hours, yes, and we are going to do something about it, Dilip. That's a promise, because the proof in the pudding is in the eating. But the thing is that I think it'll come back. I have seen in my career also a lot of changes that have taken place, but we kind of bounce back. But I also feel that we'll only bounce back if we actually start doing something today.
So Dilip, you know what you said was very interesting. This is a watershed moment. I don't know how many of us realize that, okay, that this is the moment. And these conversations now have to culminate into action. So in line with that, as far as diversity and inclusion is concerned, we recently had a new initiative called Pathya launched in Delhi, okay, where we've just gone ahead and committed a certain number as far as diversity is concerned. It's quite a stretch. We realize if you're not going to go out and make it public, we're not going to do it ever. So that's intent, which is very clear. Now the ball is in our court. We need to sit down. We need to really have conversations around this subject and take this forward. The other thing, when we were talking about how do we make it interesting, I think we need to be disruptive far more than what we have been in the past. The problem is we are very boring as an industry. We're not being disruptive at all. Okay? This divide between young, the old, etc., can all be bridged if we're extremely disruptive. Not to the cost of bringing the business down, but in terms of keeping the interest in the business alive. I remember starting an initiative called Solinaire. I remember a team 7 getting formulated in our company, which had a very different objective to what you typically expect out of a hotelier. Very interesting subjects to actually deal with. Pathya, our own commitment, we said we'll go way beyond ESG. ESG is going to be 50% of what we're going to do. It's going to be 50% more than Pathya. We spoke about, also we need to give a thought to other silos, and I'm not talking about typical hotel silos in terms of housekeeping, front office, so on and so forth. I'm talking about corporate office vis-a-vis teams on the field silo. I'm talking about the industry vis-a-vis the catering colleges silo. All right? I think we have no idea as to what people want at that stage. All right? It's only through these conversations that we've been able to bridge some kind of gap. But as long as we are disruptive, as long as we are conscious of the fact that we operate in silos, as long as we understand what these silos are, not necessarily traditional silos, I think we're going to be in a better position.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Munjal and I own hotels in Vadodara in Gujarat. So my question is to all the esteemed panelists. You guys really hit the nail on the head and touched a raw nerve by talking about past GM's auras and the inspirational beacons that the whole organization of hotels were, along with the numbers that you guys posed. But as a hotel owner, my basic question is that what can we do, apart from what you operators do, in order to make sure that this cycle of migration is reversed, or we are back to a situation where we can, hold our place and our stand in the hotel industry and all the other industries, because we always have a gap between the operator's thought and an owner's thought. And this particular problem of this migration, that's going to sink the boat for both of us. So what can we both do to derive at a situation or a solution which can actually, plug the hole, so to say?
When they send you the budget for approval,
Approve it.
goes up by 10%.
Approve it. We actually do that. I've done that recently, and what I've seen is like what they said, this talk-up is about the talent. I mean, we are throwing money on the table, but we're not getting the talent. We're getting people, but not the talent. So my question is more particularly about retention of talent.
Yeah, so, before retention, there is attraction, right? You can only retain once you get the talent in. So that's the first point. I'll start with answering Dilip's question. See, Dilip, all these things talk about talent, etc., like you rightly said, we do that regularly. The point is about action. So if you ask me, we all have got great talent management strategies and all that. No, due respect to all that. But it starts with fundamentals, right? 6-7 years back, Indian hotel companies, they used to shiver when international companies said that we'll give you 6 offs in a month, right? Or 8 offs in a month. It was a concept which was alien to all of us, right? We did it. Not because we wanted to do it, not because we're confident that doing it is a good thing, but we did it because that was the pressure on us from the market. I don't know a single hotel which had to increase manpower because of doing that, or even for doing 8 offs a month, right? So the point is, are you going to do it when you are pressed against the wall, or are you going to be a little proactive and do it, so that it brings you more advantage? Industry doyens are here, owning companies are here, operators are here. You take a pledge today that you will stop the clock at 8.5 hours, or a person is within the premises of your hotel, right? Nothing will make a greater difference to your attractiveness as that one simple fact. Yeah. And it can be done. It can be done. 2 years back in our hotels in ITC, we started a process where we said if someone is not taken a weekly off by the 7th day, you take it up in your morning meetings. On the 10th day, turn him back from the time office. He can't enter the hotel premise. Right? Lot of ho-halla happened, lot of resistance, but it settled down. Nothing has changed. Everybody's getting his weekly off in time. If not 7, then 8, not 8, then 9. The beauty is today, everybody gets their weekly off by the 8th or the 9th day. It doesn't extend, regardless of how busy your operations are. It's a question of will, right? If we understand the problem here, like you said, we need to bring our working hours down to start with, right? Now there's a conundrum. You have posted losses for the last 2 years. This year, because the talent crunch is there, you are hiring people at atrocious rates. Everybody's getting a 30% plus offer, right? Your cost base is going up. Now you'll say, I'll stop the clock at 9 hours and then add more people to fill the gap. You have a cost problem. The solution is we need to do that and we need to balance it out. We have taken 2 years of losses. Nobody foresaw that, right? This year you'll take probably lesser losses. But if you don't do this now, what you said is right. We'll be faced with a crunch in 5 years' time when you'll be hunting for talent and people not want to come to hotels.
Sanjay, I just have one point, and this is for our industry colleagues, and I'll raise my voice. We've also looked at collaborations. So today we have the first brew pub within our organization in IHCL at 7 Rivers in Bangalore at Taj MG Road. What we've done here is we've given a mastercraft kind of a academy where people who are not from hospitality can get trained to be a service staff there. On weekends, we are getting them to work. So they are not hospitality people. We are training them to bring them in. So we are now getting into other verticals to say we are attractive enough.
So ladies and gentlemen, we have actually heard the thought leadership, okay? But like all of us agree, it's almost a common voice, a common consensus that times have been disruptive. I think for us, we need to be audacious as leaders. We need to be courageous as leaders. And it's time we rewrite the rules. We rewrite the policies and procedures because this is within your purview, okay? It's just about being a little audacious. And Mr. Munjal, whenever we are as the HR fraternity, we will come to you and we will ask you to partner with HR. Okay? All right. So thank you so much, ladies and